I knew how to quit eating bugs.
This seems so simple.
There's no place like home.
I'm gonna make him an offer again with you.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of Gone for the Win. Award season is officially heating up now, and things are going to get interesting. But I've got Dan here. Dan, how's it going?
Hanging in there, Malcolm. I've just been really tired lately, and between work and watching movies all the time, I'm just exhausted.
And we've also got Lewis here. Lewis, how's it going?
Yeah, I've been catching up to a bunch of movies myself, but I feel a little bit energized because it's been a big weekend for us Godzilla fans. But and also it's fun to see awards finally starting to come in. I mean, it's really hitting the reality that we are really in award season. So it's fun to get this going.
But yeah, as always, we're going to start off with what we watched in the past week. But Dan, what did you watch in the past week?
Well, since the last time we did a show, which was Wednesday, I watched a few things. The first thing I watched was The Zone of Interest. And let me tell you something. If you weren't upset about the Holocaust and Nazi Germany and all that kind of stuff before watching this movie, you're going to be pretty upset at watching this movie. But you know, it's really a movie that it puts you in a place where like these people really did believe what they were doing was the right thing, you know, and the bad guy never thinks he's the bad guy. You know what I mean? He thinks he's the good guy or she or whoever, you know, and this movie really shows you how these people just believe what they were doing was the right thing. You know, you had this ideal house, you know, nice nice, you know, pool, the whole 9 yards, family, 6 kids, the whole 9 yards, and the guy goes, and he's the commandant of Auschwitz, you know, and it's just there's a dichotomy in the movie that's really funny because you get these screams and you got these flames and stuff going on in the background, and it's just weird because these people are just going through their lives, cleaning the house, making the dinner, the whole 9 yards, you know. This is definitely one of the best movies of the year. Will it get into Best Picture? I don't know. I hope it does get into the Best Picture lineup. I think it deserves it. Jonathan Glazer's really made up a masterpiece. Also, I had a chance. Chicken Run: Dawn of the Nugget. Yep, got that. And I'll tell you what, I loved it. I absolutely love this movie. It would be a crying shame if this missed out on the animated feature film category. I think it's fantastic, and it's better than the original, but it also ties into the original in ways that I won't spoil, you know. But it was very good. I caught up with Peasants. Lewis talked about that Wednesday. I hadn't seen that yet. Oh my God, what gorgeous, gorgeous animation. The story is a little bit wonky, you know, but the animation, I mean, first rate animation. I mean, I've seen some good animated movies this past week. What did I say? Oh, The Monk and the Gun. Now, this is from the director of Lunana, A Yak in the Classroom. Same director. Fantastic film, really has some great messages about democracy and the electoral system and the power of guns and what they mean and how what they represent. Very good movie. I would not be surprised if this snuck into Best International Feature. Because with Yak in the Classroom sneaking in, and this is a better film than that one, from the country of Bhutan, I might add. I'll tell you what, international feature is a stacked category. Like all the categories are stacked, you know what I mean? Also, Society of Snow. Did I talk about that the last time?
Yeah,
I did. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember I couldn't remember if I had talked about that. And then I got, we have a special award in our guild, Malcolm, where we vote for best internet Central Florida film. And one I hadn't seen was My Last Boyfriend, which is a documentary about a woman who's depicting her life back when she was in high school. She's an adult now, and she's got like actors playing the kids when she was in high school. And I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I'll be honest with you. I don't understand what the hype of this documentary is, but whatever. I mean, to each his own. If people like it, they like it. If they don't, whatever. Yeah, that's pretty much it, though. It was because Wednesday wasn't that long ago, and so I was there. Oh, Fargo season 5. I spent 3 episodes of that. Oh my God, I am so hooked on Fargo season 5. John Hamm, Juno Temple, Jack, what's his name from Stranger Things? Jack Curie from Stranger. Man, these Fargo, you think these Fargo seasons can't get wackier and weirder and wilder, but they do. They just find a way to get. And these are always cut from the headlines, so it's kind of interesting that some of this stuff has actually happened, But yeah, Fargo's on Hulu right now, and so if anybody's interested in Fargo season 5, I believe it is, you can watch the first 3 episodes. That's pretty much all I've seen this week, besides the back of my eyelids.
Lewis, what have you watched in the past week?
Well, I watched Godzilla -1 twice this past weekend, and it's for those who aren't aware, it's currently has the highest Letterboxd, Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, and even I think last I checked Metacritic score of any Godzilla movie in the near 70-year history of the franchise. This is honestly in competition to be potentially my all-time favorite Godzilla movie, and that's saying something given that I've watched all 30-plus films. And this is, at the moment, has overcome Oppenheimer for my favorite film of the year. Now, I'm not just saying that because I'm a massive Godzilla fan. Like I said, look at the scores. This thing is getting near universal acclaim for a reason, because it's not just your typical giant monster film. There's a human story there that you don't typically get from a lot of the other Godzilla films that I think a lot of people have been responding to. It really is, at the end of the day, an anti-war film that hits on past trauma and found family, and it does all this while doing this big giant monster film that leads up to this incredible finale that's almost like Dunkirk meets Jaws meets Godzilla all at one. Just a finale that had me on the edge of my seat, and it's been a lot of fun to see this movie doing so well. Other major things that I've seen on top of other things that I've caught up on. I saw Dream Scenario, the Nick Cage film that A24 came out with. I thought it was decent. I did think that it kind of lost steam the more that it went, and the ending, I don't know how to feel about the ending, but I thought it was an interesting observation on fame and the kind of negative effects that can come from it. And I think it touched a little bit on cancel culture to some respect as well. I also caught Priscilla, which I ended up liking this more than I thought I was gonna. Usually I like Sophia stuff, but I don't really like it a lot. But Priscilla, I really liked. I thought it was a good companion piece of Elvis, even though this is a much more grounded version. It's from the point of view of Priscilla. I do wish that it would have. I think it could have finished a little bit stronger in the third act. In the third act, I felt like it started rushing some events. But I thought it was a pretty solid film, and I would like to see if Kaylee Spaney, if she has a shot to potentially get in for actress. I thought Elordi did a good job playing this version of Elvis compared to the one Austin Butler gave us. Though personally, I like Butler's performance better personally myself. Another thing is I saw the Iron Claw. I am under review embargo, but I can do social reaction to it. All I'm going to say is that if you are a wrestling fan, this is going to be a great film. especially if you're into the history of 80s wrestling and the Von Erich family and such. I think this is a really well done wrestling movie. I think it touches on the brotherhood of these guys, and it will. The ending, it left some people with some tears. Again, I can't get too deep into it, but I would highly recommend people go check this out when it comes out. And finally, I'm going to touch on two. Well, let me touch on two Christmas movies that I caught up on this. Well, three Christmas movies that came out this past weekend. Family Switch on Netflix. Barely can notice that it's a Christmas movie. It's basically your prototypical switching bodies comedy, except this time it's a whole family instead of two individuals. I didn't really like it that much. I thought it was a little too childish for me. It just wasn't my cup of tea. Candy Cane Lane with Eddie Murphy, which came out on Amazon Prime, where Eddie Murphy's basically has to battle this like evil elf with his entire family, who's trying to like turn him into this little like figurine. I thought it was okay. I think families will enjoy this. I think Eddie's comedy helped elevate the movie. And Silent Night, the new John Woo film, I wasn't a big fan of this. I just don't think that the gimmick was able to grab me as much, even though there was a kind of cool action thing at the end there. But I personally wasn't too crazy on this. And I'll finish it off by mentioning that I did get to do a rewatch of what I think is one of my favorite films, and that's Defending Your Life. Because we got the Albert Brooks documentary that I need to catch up on. And Defending Your Life is that movie that he did back in 1991 about a guy who passes away, and he's got to go, and he all of a sudden he has to have his life judged, and he ends up falling in love with this other woman who has passed away, played by Meryl Streep. I've always wondered how he got Meryl Streep to do that movie, but it's a great movie. I love that film. Really great film about taking chances with life and looking back on not having regrets and such, and it's got some nice romance. But yeah, that's what I've been the major stuff that I've been catching up on over the last weekend.
I will tell you a story real quick, Malcolm, before you go. I was listening to an interview with a biographer of Albert Brooks, or somebody that was involved with the documentary, Lewis, and they said that Meryl Streep and him saw each other at a party or something or whatever, and she says, "I want to work with you. I just let me know if you need me for anything. Let me know." And the next thing he just happened to be writing this, and she's, "I'll do it," and that's how she ended up working on Defending Your Life. So there's a little story for you.
Yeah, that's interesting because you wouldn't think that this is necessarily a project that she'd get involved in, and when the movie. Yeah, and then when the movie came out, it wasn't like a major hit, but as time has passed on, I think more and more people have caught on to it. I mean, it freaking came out on Criterion. But I always get a kick out of rewatching that. And since the Albert Brooks documentary is coming up and I'm about to catch up to it, I decided to check it out again.
But yeah, for me, I didn't watch a lot of new stuff this week. I spent a lot of time rewatching a lot of old Adam Sandler movies for Rankum. But I did also watch Family Switch and Candy Cane Lane, and I actually really enjoyed Family Switch. I thought it was a lot of fun. It was really entertaining, and I like the fact that it was like the whole family switching as opposed to two individuals, because I think that just having the two individuals switch, I think that's been played out too many times now. And so I think the whole family switching, and it's one of those ones it's a Christmas movie, but it's one that doesn't really touch on it too much. But that didn't bother me. It was an entertaining movie. I really enjoyed it. And I also really enjoyed Candy Cane Lane and it's one of those ones because when I was watching it, I thought, is this going to be another Deck the Halls type film? Because I hadn't seen the trailers. I had no idea about the whole elf subplot and all that. I just thought it was it's going to be basically pretty similar to Deck the Halls, where it's going to be a house decorating competition, all that. That's what story is. But it was a lot more to it. and it's definitely shown like comedic Eddie Murphy is coming back in the upswing of things, and just and it's just really good to see Eddie Murphy again. And yeah, and just having Nick Offerman sort of pop up there, because I didn't realize like he was in it until
The end.
well, it wasn't until no, it was actually in the opening credits. I saw his name, was like Nick Offerman's in this.
Oh
and I just-
yeah, I didn't notice him until like when he comes in human form at the end, and like I could notice his face. It's like, oh,
yeah,
that's Nick Offerman.
Yeah, just the accent is pretty. I was like, but yeah, it's just a lot of fun, and it's just one of those ones like you don't need to go deep for Christmas movies. Like they just need to be fun, which the both of these are. I was going to try and get around to the other one that dropped, Dashing Through the Snow, but I haven't got around to that one yet. But with that,
I thought that one was okay personally. So I hope you enjoy it, Malcolm.
I mean, it is. I mean, I don't know. Like I'm probably going to try and start getting into more Christmas movies lately. I'm actually tempted to actually go into the Hallmark route for a change. But yeah, but time to move on to the awards things. Just got a little bit of news. Don't think there's really much to say about this, to be honest. But they announced that they're starting the Oscars now earlier for this next year. But Dan, what are your thoughts about them starting the Oscars earlier?
Hey, this is like for movie fans, this is like our Super Bowl. We'll watch the Super Bowl at 6:00, and it doesn't end till 11:30 at night or 10:00 at night or whatever. It's 4 hours long, whatever it is. So the Academy Awards to me is the same way. It's our Super Bowl for movie buffs and movie critics and movie people. So if it starts at 7 and goes to 11, then so be it. I don't care how long it is, because I only get to see this once a year, and this is my Super Bowl, and I will watch it if there's 10 musical numbers, or if they're doing all the songs or whatever the skits are. I'll watch it because that's my thing. That's my jam, as Alicia Malone used to say. And so hour earlier, fine by me.
Malcolm, you're muted.
Oh, you were.
I think he's asking me what I thought. So I'll just say, I mean, I think it's about dang time they did this, because we always know that the Oscars are always 3 to 4 hours long. And I'm with Dan. I don't mind. I mean, this is a once in a year event. It's gonna take a while to get all these categories out there, and then of course they got to sell ads and stuff like that. And it's always strange to me how people complain about how long it is, when it's like, well, I went back and looked. For decades, the show has been 3 to 4 hours long. So I don't know why they're complaining, but if it's going to be 3 to 4 hours long, then I think it does help to get it back to bring it down to 7 o'clock. It means that we have to wait just a little bit less than we usually have to. And apparently they're going to play Abbott Elementary after, kind of like what these stations do with the Super Bowl, where they try to show a big premiere afterwards. I think this is a long time coming. I think this is going to be a positive change. I think it might even help with ratings to some extent. So I'm very happy and excited for them to make this change.
I mean, that was what I was going to get on to. I think the primary reason they did it was because of ratings. Like, they've probably been looking at the ratings of the past few years and saw sort of where the dip off is, and they probably noticed in that last album maybe it is dipping off because he was starting to go to bed or whatnot. Just can't do it. But it's one of those ones. I've never really understood people complaining about length when they can sit through 3 hour plus movies like the extended version of Lord of the Rings, Killers of the Flower Moon, Oppenheimer, Avengers Endgame. The list goes on. It's like, but no, the Oscars are too long. That's always boggles me when people complain about length. It's like, dude, you can sit through Avengers Endgame. It's about the same length. But anyway, there's not much to sort of go on here. That it is what it is. But moving on. got a few critics groups that have announced their award. Well, one that have announced the awards, the others announced nominations, and then they've also got the awards for British independent film released as well. So I'm going to start with the British independent film. So I'm going to start from the bottom and move the way up. So the award for Best Joint Lead Performance went to the duo of Nathan Stewart Jarrett and George McKay for a movie called Femme. I don't know what this movie is. Lewis, have you heard of the movie called Femme?
No.
Dan, have you heard of a movie called Femme?
Spell that, Malcolm.
Femme.
F-E-M-M-E. It rings a bell, but I don't think I saw it.
I mean, it's most definitely a British independent film, but yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It might just be like a British release that hasn't really become a thing here yet.
I got
yeah.
you.
But anyway, Nathan Stewart Jones and George McKay won that. The best lead performance went to Mia McKenna Bruce for a movie called How to Have Sex, which is a weird title on its own. Dan, have you heard of this movie or?
Oh, How to Have Sex. I vaguely remember that, but I can't put my finger on exactly what it is. But I think I may have seen it. Let me see here. I'm just gonna pull it up, Malcolm. You go to Lewis.
But Lewis, what are your thoughts about Mia McKenna Bruce winning for How to Have Sex?
Yeah, that was it. That's interesting because I haven't seen the movie, but if I vaguely remember, because I know it was a bit of a hit with in some festivals, I think it's supposed to be a movie regarding a girl who I guess loses her virginity and then as her sex life goes on, it touches on themes about like consent and stuff like that. I haven't seen the movie. I've heard some good things about it, and so I can't. But I can't speak to the performance itself. But is this what is this female lead or lead overall?
It's just best lead performance.
Okay, so she beat out Andrew Scott, who I believe was nominated for All of Us Strangers.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be interesting. We'll talk about later about how All of Us Strangers did, but that's very interesting to me that she was able to pull that off, considering how good All of Us Strangers did elsewhere here.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, I didn't see it, Malcolm. I was just looking it up. I didn't see it.
Yeah. But moving on, and this is the first time we're going to hear about this movie. Best screenplay went to Andrew Hay for All of Us Strangers. Lewis, what are your thoughts about Andrew Hay winning for All of Us Strangers?
Yeah, it's interesting because I remember I had predicted that this would actually win the Gotham for screenplay, but it looks like it pulled it off here. And All of Us Strangers seems to have done really good here, and I'll expound on that later when we get to another category. But I just think this just shows you how much they really like this movie. So they went ahead and gave it several things, including here in screenplay. And it's going to be very interesting for me to see because we've already seen some signs that this movie maybe has not done as well early on here with American critics as some people were hoping for awards wise, because it didn't really show up with New York. Michigan movie critics didn't seem to be for it. So at least in terms of going as big as they did. So I wonder if this is going to be an interesting sign that the international crowd reacts to this movie better than the crowd over here. Because every year we see that happen. Remember, Triangle of Sadness seemed to get more pushed by international critics, and that it ended up barely getting into the Oscar. All of Us Strangers was really big with the international crowd. And it ended up pushing it to be the number 2 at Oscar. So I think this is something to keep an eye on to see if this movie gets pushed primarily by the international crowd.
Yeah, and it's partially the reason I decided to do the British independent film because it's more of a case like this could be an indication where BAFTAs are going to go.
Yeah,
this
yeah.
year. But Dan, what are your thoughts about Andrew Hay winning Best Screenplay for All of Us Strangers?
No, I don't. I don't think this is a surprise. I think that's one of the strongest parts of the movie is the screenplay. The movie itself is a little wonky, but that was a very good screenplay. I do have to say so myself. So this makes a lot of sense.
But moving on to the next category, which is Best Supporting Performance, and we actually had a tie here. It was tied between Paul Mescal for All of Us Strangers and Sean Thomas for How to Have Sex. So it's looking like these two might be big players in the British side of things, anyway, especially when it comes to BAFTAs. But Lewis, what are your thoughts about Paul Mescal and Sean Thomas winning Best Supporting Performance for their respective movies?
Yeah, this is actually the first time that I heard it's a tie. I guess I just caught on Twitter that Mescal had won, so I didn't know it was actually a tie with the supporting performance from How to Have Sex. So that tells you how strong How to Have Sex was, and probably was pretty close to winning the big prize. But it is interesting that Mescal was able to get here the win here, but not Andrew Scott. That might be in effect because Mescal did end up being a big part of award season last year, and it even ended up sneaking to Best Actor at Oscar. But yeah, I think again this just goes to show you how well they responded to these two movies.
Yeah. And Dan, what are your thoughts about Paul Mescal and Sean Thomas both winning for supporting performance?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what Lewis said. I mean, these two obviously are the two movies that they seem to like the most, and so of course you get a supporting from both movies in there. You know, Paul Mescal was good in All of Us Strangers. I think he's got something else coming out soon, if I'm not mistaken. I forget what else. I know he's got another movie coming out soon.
He's going to be in Gladiator 2.
Yeah, but there's something. I think there's something else. I've been seeing trailers for something else he's in, or something. I can't remember.
I'm about to bring up his page.
He's got something coming up real soon. I mean, I know he's in Gladiator.
But moving on to breakthrough performance, we've got Vivian Oparah for a movie called Rye Lane. Dan, what are your thoughts about Vivian Oparah winning breakthrough performance?
I'll tell you right now, these two main kids in Rye Lane you're gonna hear about them a lot over the next few years. They were fantastic in Rye Lane. I could take my eyes off the pair of them. You know, she was really good, and the other kid that was in it was really good. So yeah, this is a great what do you call it? Great award for her.
I think the other movie that you're thinking of, Dan, is Foe. F-O-E.
That's right. I knew it. I knew there was something else. It's Foe.
Oh, yeah, I saw that movie.
Because screeners have already gone out for Foe. And I knew that he was in it. And I didn't see it, you know. Go ahead.
But, Lewis, what are your thoughts about Vivian Oparah winning for breakthrough performance for Rye Lane?
Yeah, I did see Foe. I don't think that's going to be getting any awards. But yeah, I'm very happy to see this because Rye Lane is, I think, one of the more underrated films of this year. I gave it a solid B+ review. I think it's unfortunate the way that in the States here it kind of just got dumped to being a Hulu release. This is from a first-time director too, so I'll be very interested to see what she can come up with in the future. Nice, cute little rom-com film. Gets in, gets out, doesn't overstay its welcome. Very funny. So I'm very happy to see that it came away with an award here.
But moving on to Best Feature Documentary, and that went to a documentary called If the Streets Were on Fire. I don't know. Have anyone heard of that documentary?
Yeah, I didn't see it. I've seen a lot of documentaries this year, but I don't remember seeing that one.
Yeah, just quickly reading up about it. It's apparently based on about a group called Bike Storms, which is about a movement for kids to express themselves based on violence and that. Something like that. It sounds interesting, but I don't know what it is. I don't know if I don't expect anyone to have seen it. Moving on to the Douglas Hickox Award, Best Debut Director went to Savannah Leaf for Earth Mama. Anyone aware of that?
Well, we got we have the screener of it. I haven't watched it yet, though.
I saw it. I thought it was okay. I wouldn't say that was like particularly blown away by it or anything like that. I thought it was okay. Now, was this an award that they just gave to her straight up, or were there nominees?
If there was nominees, the article that I'm looking
it doesn't
at,
show.
Isn't
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, no disrespect to her, because it's not like she did a bad job. I just thought the movie was just okay. But I do think that we've gotten some debuts that I was more impressed by directorially. But I thought the movie was just okay. We'll see if she comes up with anything in the future.
But moving on to Best Debut Screenwriter, it went to Nida Manzoor for Polite Society. But Dan, what are your thoughts about Nida Manzoor winning for Polite Society?
Look, I like Polite Society. It's not the best movie, but I like the story. That was one of the things I liked the best about it, is that these girls and this whole thing. I mean, I'm starting to see some new voices in Hollywood and from around the world that are doing some of these, like the Persian Version and Polite Society and some of these types of things that are coming around, and Rye Lane and these people. So these aren't like Polite Society wasn't the greatest movie, but I can see some talent there in the screenplay and stuff like that, and so when I hear these types of things, Malcolm, it just makes me think, I can't wait for the next thing they write or whatever,
Yeah. And just quickly, I did look up and find the other nominations for debut director. And it's actually interesting that Savannah Leaf won for it, because also nominated in the category you had Rain Allen Miller for Rye Lane, Sam H. Freeman and Nung Chun Ping, apologies for pronunciation, for Femme, Charlotte Regan for Scrapper, and Molly Manning Walker for How to Have Sex. So, and that one surprised me too, just with how much they loved the acting in the movie. Because How to Have Sex was also nominated in debut screenwriter as well, which also. So maybe there's a case of them just wanting to spread love and try and get some of these other people out there. I don't know. I don't know how they do it. But moving on to breakthrough producer, it went to Theo Barraclough for a movie called Scrapper, which I remember seeing the trailer for. I just haven't seen the movie. I know it's got Harris Dickinson from Triangle of Sadness in it anyway, but anyone heard of the movie called Scrapper?
Yeah, we got a screener for it. I have not had a chance.
Wait, hold on. What's the name again?
Scrapper.
Scrapper.
Scrap.
Yeah,
Scrapper. It's in our IFC or Magnolia. One of our links with a bunch of.
Oh yeah. Okay, it's coming to mind. I have not watched it, and to be frank, I can't say for certain I'll even get to it by the end of the year with how much I got to catch up on.
I heard it's not great, but it's not bad either.
The interesting thing about the British Independent Film Awards is that they've got awards for everything. Because they've also got Best Debut Director for Feature Documentary, which is a lot more than what the Gothams have anyway. And Chloe Abrahams won for a documentary called Taste of Mango. I don't expect anyone to have heard of it. The Raindance Maverick Award went to If the Streets Were on Fire, which I think it sounds like it's an award for documentary. I don't know. Best British Short Film went to Festival of Slaps. All right, time to get into some ones you guys will know of. Best International Independent Movie went to Anatomy of a Fool. Louis, what are your thoughts about Anatomy of a Fool winning International Independent?
Adding to the conversation regarding earlier when Dan was talking about seeing Zone of Interest, I think Zone of Interest, and again, unfortunately haven't gotten to see the movie because I'm really looking forward to seeing it. I think right now Zone of Interest is behind Anatomy of Fall in terms of what that international film that's going to get into picture is, because I've been noticing critics have been showing up for this movie. And we're going to talk about it showing up elsewhere, but critics have responded well into making sure this movie gets a push, especially after France didn't choose it.
Yeah, well,
I think that
that's the reason why, Louis.
Yeah.
It can't get into international feature. It can only get into Best Picture and some of these other characters. So that's why it's ahead of Zone of Interest in that regard, because you know that Zone of Interest can get into international feature. So then it would get into one of the big categories. But I think the better of the two movies is the Zone of Interest.
Well, I mean, again, I haven't gotten to see Zone of Interest. I'm pumped to see Zone of Interest, but I think this shows. But like I said, I think this just shows the continuing strength of this movie at the moment. That it's probably ahead at the moment to get into international. That doesn't mean things can't change. We've seen this happen before. I mean, remember last year? The big push for RRR, and that ultimately ended up not really showing up anywhere with the guilds, and then it ultimately ended only getting that song nomination, even though it ended up winning. But that being said, I think this just goes to show you that this movie, at the moment, if you're making if you're doing a predicted 10, it's probably a safer bet that this and not Zone of Interest is probably going to get in. Though again, I'm not declaring Zone of Interest chances dead. It's just like as of right now, I would give the edge to Anatomy of a Fall.
No, I agree. I agree there. On my own personal top 10, I got them both in. You know, that's just my personal top 10, but I agree.
And I'm going to touch on these the last two. That's on this page. One thing I noticed when I was looking up the nominations for the debut director, they actually had a few other categories that must have been awarded at an earlier time, because I think they did all the craft categories earlier in the I think it was a couple of weeks ago. But best British independent film and best director both went to All of Us Strangers. But Dan, what are your thoughts about All of Us Strangers winning?
Well, I mean, look, it got a lot of buzz out of Toronto. I saw it in Miami, and I liked it. I just didn't love it as much as other people. I think it's a bit of a conundrum of a movie when you see it. Well, I know Lewis has already seen it, and I just think I think it has a great premise and it has a great story for about half the movie. Then it starts kind of, the ending is just such a wild, wacky ending, and it makes you think and ask questions and talk to people. That's the good thing about a movie, that when people are talking about a movie, talk about its ending and talking about things about it, that's a good thing. I just don't think it's gonna translate. I don't think this is gonna translate to a lot of love at the Academy Awards. I could be completely wrong. I think I have Andrew Scott at like 8 or 9 on my best actor predictions, and this is in my own personal, I have like a letterbox of best films of the year. I think I got this in the mid-20s somewhere. So that's just my opinion on it. It might get a lot of buzz and build and it might get in. So, but I don't think this is going to translate, Malcolm.
And Lewis, what are your thoughts about All of Us Strangers winning Best British Independent and Best Director?
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement with Dan. I'm not sure. I haven't really seen much signs that this is going to be potentially a big hit with the Academy members, particularly at least the Academy members here in the States. And another thing is, I don't even know how many of the voters will get to see it, because even at the press screening that I went to, the turnout wasn't great. And, you need those critics to push the movie to make sure that it's on top of those screener piles, because there's a lot of industry voters that don't bother starting to watch these movies till the very end. And, we've heard so many stories about that because they're busy all year trying to make movies and such. But then, that being said, I think it's definitely getting pushed by the international crowd. Now, does that mean it's going to show up at Oscar? It might. We've seen the situation where sometimes the international crowd likes a movie more. We saw it last year with Triangle of Sadness, where they pushed that into getting some love at BAFTA, and it ended up showing on Oscar nomination morning. That being said, it was a non-starter to have a chance to win any of those things that it was nominated for, but because there was enough passion there, it was able to get in. I think that's what All of Us Strangers' chances are probably going to be right now. It's an international choice. Maybe it can sneak into showing up somewhere at the Oscars, but at the moment, I don't think that it's going to show up as being a big contender. And on top of this, it's getting pushed by Searchlight, and Searchlight has Poor Things. Poor Things is a much bigger player for them. So I think this shows its strength internationally. I just don't know if this is going to translate to anything past. Maybe it shows up nice, maybe it shows up with some nice nominations with BAFTA, but I'm not sure if this is going to show up on Oscar morning.
Maybe the Independent Spirit Awards.
Yeah, that's maybe there, but I just don't know, because one thing that I did notice with this movie is that I remember when it was screened at Telluride, it got a lot of good buzz, but since then you've been seeing a little bit more pushback to people going, well, I liked the movie, but I didn't love it as much as some other people. I'm with you, Dad. I liked the movie. I didn't love it. Out of the 230 so movies that I've seen from this year, I currently have it at number 30, which is not bad. You know, that's respectable. I thought it was a good movie. I just didn't love it like certain. I know there's some people that it's one of their favorite films of the year and such. But yeah, I just think this is not going to be a major player. But it's interesting to see how far the international crowd is going to try to push it.
And the problem is too, exactly what you're saying, Lewis. Not to drag this on too long, Malcolm, but you have Anatomy of a Fall, you have Zone of Interest, you have some Japanese films that are really high, big name players.
Perfect Days. Perfect Days could end up, yeah.
Monster, you know. So I just feel like this is kind of down on the list for international, and it's kind of down on the list for anything for the Academy Awards. So I just, unfortunately, I don't think it's going to translate, you know, but whatever. You never know.
Well, I mean, I said earlier, it may not necessarily show the landscape for the Oscars, but as I said, this is probably what we could see at the BAFTAs. I think that it's specifically why I brought this up.
Yeah, no, they had like Boiling Point a few years ago. What was it, Rocks? Last year, the year before, films that we didn't hear about over here. I mean, we eventually heard about Boiling Point because of Stephen Graham, which they say he's like channeling Gordon Ramsay or something. Then it was Rocks, and then there was something else. So it takes us like a year later to get some of these British films or some of these films that are specifically British, you know, everyone.
I mean, it could end up being, because every now and then we get out of the 5 best films, we maybe get a nominee that's like, well, we know that's not a best picture contender at Oscar. That just ended up being a BAFTA thing, and maybe that's what this translates into.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of what's going to like British movies get released wide a year before. I mean, Paddington is a good example of that. Was 20.
Yeah, they get Paddington. Yeah, good point, Malcolm. They'll get Paddington in the UK before we get it over here in the United States. Absolutely, you're right.
Yeah, they get it Christmas time, and we got to wait till like February.
Oh, I mean, I don't know. I think it depends on if it's, but I think that's also part of the reason because the film. I don't know. Anyway, moving on to some of these other categories I was talking about. I'm not going to touch on all of them. I'm just going to touch on a select few. Best cinematography went to All of Us Strangers. Any thoughts on that? All of Us Strangers getting cinematography at the Independent Awards.
I mean, I don't know what a lot of the other films look like, but that it did have a good look to it. I did like the look of All of Us Strangers. It had weird camera angles and weird things it was doing with the camera, I would say. So they're going to say best cinematography. All right, whatever. Good for them.
That plus they clearly loved the movie, at least out of these contenders, so that probably helped too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the last thing I will actually bring up is some interesting facts that I found out when I was looking at this. So the movie that had the most nominations at the British Independent Film Awards only went away with a handful, and that was Rye Lane was the most nominated movie. So that could mean it's, I mean, whether or not it translates, but it could miss out on a lot of BAFTAs. All of Australia was nominated 14, and it got a lot of them. So was
I mean, Riley could maybe he'll show up for best British film.
Oh, I mean, it's probably going to come up. It may not get nominated as much as people may have thought it was going to, because I think it's the independent film pushing All of Us Strangers a lot. I think it's just it's going to have some good luck on its side. But moving on to New York Film Critics Circle. Actually scroll down once again. Start from the bottom. That's not a special award. Best cinematography went to Hoyt van Hoytema for Oppenheimer. Lewis, what are your thoughts about Oppenheimer getting cinematography?
Good choice, though I believe it's not necessarily the hottest track record that will win cinematography here, wins at the Oscar. Don't quote me too much on that. I could have sworn that I checked it to see. And that being said, I given where they went with director, which we'll talk about later, I'm not too surprised that they gave this cinematography. And it's a good choice because I think Oppenheimer has some of the best cinematography of the year. So I just think it was a solid choice by them that complemented their eventual decision in director.
But Dan, what are your thoughts about Hoyt van Hoytema winning best cinematography for Oppenheimer?
Well, I just rewatched Oppenheimer, and it had like 9 or 10 different special features on it, and one of them is Hoyt van Hoytema talking about the cameras and the IMAX and changing it up for black and white and all this stuff. And I'll tell you right, they put a lot of effort into doing the cinematography of this movie, and it really shows as far as I'm concerned. I think the cinematography is incredible in this movie. I would not be surprised that he won the Oscar for best cinematography. Hopefully he'll get nominated, but he's got 2 Dan Lautzen movies. He's got a couple other things he's got to fight. At least you don't have to worry about Greg Fraser and Dune too.
Yeah, I mean, like this doesn't surprise me. Like just with all the work they went into the just making the bomb effects look cool as well. I think it's just one of those ones that really helps with cinematography. I think, but I mean, it's just one of those ones like that. It probably will end up in the nominations. I don't think there's a problem of that happening. But it's going to depend on what it's up against, whether it can pull out the win as well. But moving on to best international film, and it was Anatomy of a Fall. Lewis, what are your thoughts about Anatomy of a Fall winning international film?
Yeah, it's just adding to what we were talking about earlier with the British Independent. I think it's just critics making sure that this gets the push to get a notice, given that it wasn't submitted by France, and they really want to make sure that. And not to mention, of course, the film has been very well received by critics. I mean, even I, who wasn't as high on as a lot of other people I know, it's still a solid film to me. I gave it a B+. So I just think that this is clearly critics, and we'll see how things play out because this is, of course, just one group, but it seems like I wouldn't be surprised if this is the international film that critics decide to push in the same way that last year they tried to push RRR when India didn't go with that.
But Dan, what are your thoughts of Anatomy of a Fall getting best international?
Yeah, I mean, even though it's half English and it's half French, I understand why it's getting the push. Going off of what Lewis said, critics groups are going to love this movie, and it's going to really push this movie. And using RRR as an example is a very good idea, because it really resembles that in a lot of ways, since that didn't get into India and this didn't get in for France. But yeah, so it's just going to be the domino. It's going to be one of the dominoes that has to fall for this thing to get into Best Picture.
But moving on to best first film, went to Past Lives. Dan, what are your thoughts about Past Lives getting best first film?
See, this is where the Gotham's really screwed up, because this should have won. I mean, this should be winning this type of award at every critics group, because it was a absolute masterpiece of a film. This is another one where if the dominoes and all these different guilds and critics groups start falling, and this keeps getting best first film for Celine Song, that's only gonna spearhead her possibility to get into either screenplay, director, or best picture for Past Lives. And I, for one, I want to see this thing win as many awards as it can win, because I think it's a great film.
And moving on to best animated feature film, New York Film Critics went to The Boy and the Heron. Dan, what are your thoughts about The Boy and the Heron getting animated feature film?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think it's about a half a good film. The second half of the film just goes off in this weird existential kind of wacky place that I just couldn't fall into. And I know other people are liking the movie. I don't think it's the best animated film of the year. That's just my opinion. But hey, that's who voted for it, and they voted for it. So all the more power to him. Miyazaki's got a lot of power in Hollywood because he's been doing it a long time. He's made a lot of great films, so I can't knock people voting for this because of the pedigree.
Lewis, what are your thoughts about The Boy and the Heron getting animated feature film?
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily think that this only means that Spider-Verse needs to be that concerned that's going to lose animated feature, because if you look back at the history of New York Film Critics Circle, they seem to try to be a little bit more different when it comes to animated feature, almost like on purpose. So maybe they don't necessarily go for the front runner. At least the last couple of years, they haven't seemingly gone for the front runner. But I believe they did go for Into the Spider-Verse. But very early on into that season, people weren't necessarily ready to predict Into the Spider-Verse winning animated feature compared to this. Across the Spider-Verse is obviously the front runner. Remember last year, we thought Pinocchio was going to completely sweep with critics, but early on, Marcel was putting up a pretty good fight, and then eventually Pinocchio started pulling away there. I think that might be what you see early on. I think you're going to see some highbrow groups maybe try to push Boy and the Heron to make sure that industry voters don't forget about it, even though I think it's probably pretty safe for an animated feature nomination. And then we'll probably start to see Across the Spider-Verse really show itself as the front runner that we think it's going to be. But I think this was just NYFF doing its typical thing of pushing something a little bit different than what than the front runner for animated.
But yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily think it's New York's Film Critics Group trying to go for something different. I think it's a case. Ghibli is one of those studios that the animated movies are very divisive as well, because it's one of those ones like some people either like the direct when they go in the wacky route, and Hayao Miyazaki definitely goes the wacky route and a lot of the times, or if they really like when they go it's safe. So I think it's Ghibli is one of those ones like they never really, you can't really ever get really consistent. You're either going to get people like Dan who didn't like it when that goes wacky, but then you're going to get other people like who really love the Ghibli movie. So so it's just one of those ones like I mean it's one of the, I think this is more New York Film Critics just trying to sort of give it some help to get it into animated film, because it's because there's a bit of competition there. voted 5 spots, and then about like 6 or 7 movies like vying for that spot. It's really tough. But moving on to best non-fiction movie. I don't expect anyone to have maybe heard of this, but it went to Menus Classes Les Troisios. I've not heard of it. Anyone heard of this?
Yes,
Yeah.
we actually got the screener in our email. Me and Dan, I would guess, because
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet. My plan is to watch it this week. I just been so busy with work lately. I'm Dylan, our friend Dylan over at the Dill Pickle Movie Network has seen it, and he has nothing but good things to say about it. It's another food movie. It's another movie about food, like Taste of Things. But he says the way they do the food and the way they do all that kind of stuff is a little bit different than the Taste of Things. But he says it's very, very good.
yeah, I mean, I'm definitely going to try to take time to see it because I've heard good things as well. I mean, it's a long documentary. Apparently, I think it's like 4 hours long or something like that. So, but apparently,
it's like Lewis. Sorry, it's like the preparation of like a day in the life of a restaurant and how they do the preparation. How they get up in the morning, they start it out, they start preparing stuff, and then the whole process of serving the restaurant and giving the customers and including the restaurant down. So it's like the whole process of an entire restaurant, a day in the life of a restaurant. And you really get a lot of appreciation for what goes into a restaurant. And I've worked at restaurants, so I know, and I know you have too, Malcolm.
I mean, I'm very interested to check it out because I think it would be fascinating to see what it takes. Because apparently there's like a Michelin star restaurant also. Like it's a four Michelin. Okay, so 4 Michelin. Yeah, I'd be very fascinated to see because apparently it does show you everything that it goes into, how it goes in a day there. But I will say this, I haven't really seen that much talk about this getting to Oscar. It would be interesting to see if this helps it get into the short list. Because I do wonder how many of those voters though are going to bother to sit down for 4 hours to watch this. I mean, it could help it big time if the critics try to push it.
And the documentary branch, we know, likes different things. They don't like the same old talking heads or whatever. Yeah. So if this is something different, then that could bode in its favor for a documentary. You know what I mean?
But maybe for a nomination. I'm not sure it could win because I could see a bunch of voters lazily going, I'm not going to sit through 4 hours of that. And all that
I understand that. That's what I'm saying. I'm just saying the documentary branch, with the things that we always think, these are the ones that are going to get in, and then 1 or 2 of those don't, and some weird things like Lunana, a yak in the classroom gets in from Bhutan or something like that. Or this might get in. You don't know.
Or Housemaid of Splinters was the one last year. Yeah, that was the big surprise.
That wasn't that good.
But anyway, moving on. Supporting actor went to Charles Melton for May December. This is kind of a given just based on everything else that's been happening. But Louis, what are your thoughts about Charles Melton getting supporting actor?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see Dan's thoughts because I have a feeling there's going to be a running theme when we throughout the critic stage, not necessarily through the industry stage, but throughout the critic stage. Because every year we at least get one category where the critics do one thing and the industry does something else. And sometimes you get these crazy years like in 2017 where it seemed like almost all 4 categories we saw that. But we usually at least get one category where that happens. And I'm starting to think that for sure supporting actor is going to be that category this year. I think the critics are really going to push Charles Melton because he won here. He won at Gotham. I think we're going to be spending the next month with Dan complaining about this. But I think they're really going to push him. Do I think he's going to win the Oscar? No, because I think that the industry doesn't really go for those new. Well, Charles Manson is a new face, but for a lot of people, he's kind of a breakthrough here. So, and I think what you're going to do is that the industry is going to go for more of a Gosling or a RDJ or a De Niro. But this is going to help potentially get Melton to become a nominee for supporting actor on Oscar nominations morning. But to me, unless something drastically starts changing as these critics start coming in, this to me is a sign that critics are going to try to push this guy in supporting actor by giving him the win in this category in various group circles.
Dan, what are your thoughts about Charles Melton getting supporting actor?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of this at all. I just don't understand. Were there nominees here, Malcolm? Is there a list of
No,
again, yeah.
No, and why they do not do nominees. They apparently they get in a room, they get closed in there, and they basically, I guess, fight it out until they come up with a winner.
Okay. Yeah, I like Charles Melton in May, December. I'm not saying I didn't like him, but I mean, he's not giving the best supporting acting performance of the year. I mean, it's ridiculous that this guy keeps winning these awards. Robert Downey Jr. gave the performance of his career. Robert De Niro is fantastic. Ryan Gosling's going in a freaking crazy direction. Yeah, this is an adult guy playing a child, is what Charles Melton is doing. Okay, if you want to watch that, just go watch Big. You know what I mean? I mean, just look. I think you're right, though, Lewis. I think these critics groups could get him into the 5. And every year we always get some underdogs that you never heard of, people that you really have never heard of, or people that are kind of out on the fringes, and they get in, and that elevates their career. Remember the guy from Sound of Metal? He's been acting for decades, and he gets in for that, and then he's in all kinds of stuff now. You know, he's been popping up in different Paul Raci. You know what I mean? So these are the kind of things that happen, and then sometimes the people go off and disappear, like Gabre Sidibe or Barkab Abdi. These people just go off into the ether or whatever. But I think Melton will have a career after this, and he's gonna keep getting roles. I just don't think this is gonna translate to the Academy Awards as far as wins.
No, I mean, no, I don't disagree with you, Dad. I would not call him the best supporting performer. I mean, my personal number one at the moment is RDJ. That's just my personal. And I think after that, you definitely got to talk about De Niro and Gosling and such. But I got to tell you, at the moment, I would
pairing Ruffalo Dafoe pairing and Poor
Things. Oh, yeah.
Exclude both of them. How would you exclude both of them? You know what I mean?
But I just think you're going to see critics push Melton. I mean, I'm not as annoyed by it as you seem to be, but because I did really like Melton's performance. But I just think this is a situation. We see this every year, at least one category. The critics do their own thing. Then we get to the industry, and the industry decides, oh, we'll nominate your favorite, but we're not going to give that person to win because we're going to do this.
The other two things is we all know this. High water raises all boats, you know. So if May December gets into picture, gets into screenplay or director, gets into actor, actress, best supporting actress, that could drag Charles Melton along. You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah. Though again, at the moment, I'm not going to start changing my Gold Derby and saying that he's going to win. But I think that I just feel like critics are going to push him and give him wins.
May December seems to be catching on with a lot of people. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's one of those ones where it's going to. I think it dropped on Netflix.
It's on Netflix.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's one of those ones. Because we'll get to it when we get to a different category coming up, because there's another category where they go completely out of left field. At least with Charles Melton, he's been in that conversation. That's like,
I got you, Malcolm.
And it's one of those ones. I don't think anyone is saying that he's going to win the Oscar. I think it's. I think I've said this before. I think a lot of these critics groups, their goal is to try and help elevate people and try and get them noticed by the Academy if they don't think they're going to get that notice. So I think with the fact they want to help out Charles Melton by giving him this treatment, then all for it. Like, and I mean, it's one of those ones. To them, he may have done something for them that they didn't see in Downey Jr., which is probably why they went over for him as well. like it's one of those ones like and it's one of those ones like, and for some of these critics who I would have loved to be in a fly will watch this film critic fight club and them fighting out to try and get their picks and see on how they come to this decision because and it's one of those ones like so I'm actually with Dan a little bit. I kind of wish that we find out like who else was kind of considered when they're talking because so kind of get a better view, which is why it's going to be interesting when we get to the Michigan ones in a bit. But moving on to supporting actress, that went to Divine Joy Randolph from The Holdovers. Once again, based on what I've heard, this is kind of a given. But Dan, what are your thoughts on the Divine Joy?
Yeah,
Randolph?
I love Divine Joy Randolph in this movie. I mean, what can I say? I think she's really grounded in reality, playing the cafeteria worker, but she's got her own problems with her son going in the military and having issues with him and stuff. And I think these three people, these kind of three loners, really commiserate with each other in a way that really kind of just grounded this movie in a real solid reality that you can really get behind. And it's one of my favorite movies of the year, The Holdovers, and I think she is well deserving of this. I just hope, Danielle Brooks doesn't catch on and take this away from her.
Lewis, what are your thoughts about Divine Joy Randolph getting supporting actress for The Holdovers?
Well, I mean, I'm gonna get to see Daniel Brooks' performance tomorrow. I think you will too, Dan. Yeah. We're gonna see The Color Purple tomorrow. But I still think Daniel Brooks is probably, if what I've heard from, is gonna be really dangerous to win the supporting actress. That being said, The Color Purple is that release that's late. Maybe not necessarily all the critics got to it, especially for these early groups. And it's also, I think, when you look at the history of the NYFFC, they are a little bit highbrow. So I'm not necessarily sure if they were going to push Daniel Brooks anyway, because Color Purple is supposed to be from one, even though it deals with serious stuff regarding spousal abuse and stuff like that. From what I understand and what I've been told, the musical version's a little bit more crowd friendly in the way that it presents things. And Divine Joy Randolph, while at the moment I don't have her on my number one on Gold Derby. I at the moment I'm thinking maybe Brooks is going to get it. She's definitely in it. And I can see a situation where you're going to see critics. I can see a situation where this ends up being a split. Don't be surprised if you start seeing a split where some critics go with Brooks, some critics go with Randolph. Remember last year, supporting actress was really competitive. There were various groups doing their own thing with that. But I think Randolph is definitely in it, and I think she did. I think her performance really hit with these critics, and I think these higher brow groups are going to really try to push her. And this tells me that if Daniel Brooks is not going to pull it off, then maybe it is going to end up being Randolph all along, because she does have a really good performance. This is a strong movie with passion. I'm seeing it. I've seen on social media people are ranking this high in their top 10 list. I currently have it on my number 10. I agree. It's a movie that's actually aged better with me the more I think about it. I'm trying to get a chance to rewatch it. I think this tells us that Randolph is probably Daniel Brooks' biggest competition for the supporting actress Oscar.
And Malcolm, I have a question I want to ask both of you guys. I know you got. I think this year, it's just my opinion, this could be the first year the best opportunity. I'm not saying that we could get an entire category of acting that are completely made up of minority performances. I feel strongly that Best Supporting Actress could be completely made up of African American women. And I know, where did this come from? I've seen a lot of movies. And you got your girl in Air. You got Danielle Brooks. You got Divine Joy Randolph. You got a supporting performance in Memory. Not Memory. origin from Niecy Natt's Bets. I don't know. I could be coming from complete left field on this, but I think this is a legit shot. Best Supporting Actress could be completely African American. You could get 2 from The Color Purple with Taraji P. Henson. There you go. There's 5.
Well, I mean, I would say there's a possibility. I would just also caution that I remember last year there was talk that it would be actress could potentially be Kate Blanchett and then like 4 minority actresses. And we saw what happened to Daniel Deadwyler and Viola Davis, the whole Andrea Riseborough mess and controversy and all that stuff.
No, you're right.
So I would just be a little bit careful with that. But I wouldn't say that it's completely impossible either.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Mark.
It's definitely possible. I mean, it's probably gonna and like especially for some of them is like, and I think for Viola Davis to have some kind of shot, and this is no like, well, yes, I know that movies that came out early in the year can still pop up. I'm not saying that they can't. I think it's going to depend if people remember Viola Davis's performance in the movie or not.
Well, if not that, maybe the Hunger Games, the Ballad of Songbird and Snakes, where she's going completely crazy with that performance, and it's fantastic. Have you seen Hunger Bird?
No, I haven't.
I see where Dan's coming in terms of that, but I don't really think that Lionsgate is really, from what I understand, they're not massively pushing her or anything like that. Now, I will say this for Air, since Malcolm brought it up. They are trying to get people to remember. They're doing screenings. They sent out screeners. Apparently, the New York and LA critics, I mean, we got screeners, but the New York and LA critics got these really nice boxes from the Air campaign team. So they're trying to make people remember. The problem that I think Air is going to face and hurt by talking about supporting actress could hurt Viola Davis's chances to get in, even though I can see a situation where, say, she gets into SAG, but she doesn't get it anywhere else and SAG really loves her. There's so many contenders this year that people have reacted well to. And that's going to make it tough for Air to get in when you have these late breakers like A Color Purple. There's, you have Poor Things, you have Maestro, you have Killers of the Flower, you got American Fiction, which is, going to be a big crowd pleaser. I think Air's chances are going to be hurt by the fact that there's such a stacked field.
Once again, a couple good people in American Fiction that could get into Best Supporting Actress.
Yeah,
I'm telling you. Obviously, you got Jodie Foster. You got Jodie Foster and Julianne Moore that are going to be like, hey, hold my drink. We're multiple Oscar. Hold my beer. For some of these people that have never gotten,
No, I do feel. No, I was just going to say, though I do feel, given that we're talking about supporting actress, that I do feel like Nayad has been losing some steam of late. So I'm not sure how good Foster's chances are to get in, even though I still think she could get in. But no, I see where you're coming from, Dan. I just think that we have to be careful. And I think it was a good point that Malcolm made, because clearly they know that people might be forgetting about Air because they're really trying to push. I mean, they're doing the screenings. They're making sure everybody gets the screeners. But at the end of the day, it could just end up being a movie that a lot of voters really like. Like, look, I really liked Air, and it's currently not in my top 10. Yeah, that's not a diss against it. Yeah. Like I have it. I'm looking at it right now. I have it at number 11. That's not a diss against it. It's just that there's just other movies that I liked more.
No, you're right. I agree with you, Lewis. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, and very quickly before you move on, last thing I'll say is with Viola Davis specifically. I mean, like maybe people vote for to get it into as their way of apologizing for last year. Well, I mean, it's a weird way to.
You said it, Malcolm. You said it, Malcolm. What a way to freaking make up for a screw up the year before. 5 African American women to get into one category. That would be unprecedented. Go ahead.
I mean, I wasn't going that, but I was more of a case of because Viola Davis was one of the ones that was arguably knocked out because of the Andrew grassroots campaign.
That too.
So-
A Paul Giamatti situation when there was a big controversy he missed for Sideways, but I believe he got into next year for Cinderella Man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
But
and
anyway.
also, real quick, remember Meryl Streep, in my opinion, should have won Best Actress for Julie and Julia for playing Julia Child. Next year, she wins for the Iron Lady for playing Margaret Thatcher. Coincidence?
which was more deserved.
Oh, fast shots fired here over Malcolm.
I mean, I thought she was.
I actually agree with Malcolm. I mean, no diss against her and Julia, but
All right, never mind.
But anyway, moving on before we go down a really big rabbit hole. And talking about Julianne Moore, best screenplay, which they've combined, which is just best screenplay overall, went to May December, which could be positioning it to sneak in. It's original, I want to say.
Yeah, it's got to be original. It's not a doubt.
Yeah,
it's original.
yeah. So they're definitely trying to get people to go for May December here. But Lewis, what are your thoughts about May December getting best screenplay?
I think it's just them trying to push it, and considering that original screenplay is a little less competitive than how stacked adapted screenplay is looking, and there's still some possibilities as to what could be maybe like the last two spots or something, depending on how contenders do, particularly picture packages and stuff. I could see May December potentially getting in there. And I do think critics have responded very well for May December. It feels like the movie is on really good momentum at the moment. So I just think that this is them really responding well to it and trying to push the movie with the screenplay win.
Dan, what are your thoughts about May December getting best screenplay?
No, I agree with Lewis here. I mean, this is another thing where they're trying to push May December and they're trying to get the word out for Todd Haynes and to get into original screenplay. And I think this is a good thing for them. You know what I mean? What else can I say here? I mean, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but
and yeah, like, I mean, this one that I definitely don't see having any problems getting into original screenplay. Personally, I think, because I think the adapted side is probably a little bit more stacked when it comes to screenplay things. But it'll be interesting. Now, moving on.
And Netflix is pushing the screenplay because I will point out, I just want to point out real quick, because I believe you also got it there, that they gave us the actual screenplay to May December. So they're making sure critics know the quality of the screenplay.
Yep.
Yeah. But moving on to Best Actor, and this is the one I was referring to when we were talking about Charles Melton. This is the one that kind of came out of left field because they went for Franz Rogowski for Ira Sachs' Passages, which I have no idea what this is. Anyone know anything about this?
I saw it.
So, well, I have not seen Passages, so I can't speak on it. I know that it was a big hit with a lot of the super indie crowd. I want to say that it showed up at Gotham's. I think it got one or two nominations.
Actually, I think I do remember seeing it there now.
Yeah.
Malcolm, go ahead. Do you have Mubi? Do either one of you guys have Mubi? MUBI?
No, I don't have it. Is that where it's only playing?
Passages on Mubi. Passages
Okay.
is on Mubi. So you can watch it on that. A couple. Delinquents is going to be on, if it's not already on Mubi.
I've seen Delinquents.
Yeah.
I've seen Delinquents.
Yeah. Go ahead. What were you saying?
No, I just want to make the point real quick that where I was talking about earlier about Melton, I feel like this is critics trying to push him. If you look at the history of the New York Film Critics Circle, there's always at least one of these acting wins that's kind of out of left field and clearly just them doing their own thing. It doesn't really become a thing. I think this is this one. I think this is not like you're going to start seeing this dude showing up elsewhere. I really don't think so. I think this is just purely a New York Film Critics thing, and where they decided that they're going to do their own thing here. He's probably not going to show up anywhere else, so they decided to give him some love here. This is not a Charles Melton situation. I think this is a rare outlier event.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I saw passages. He's weird in the movie. He's got a weird accent in the movie.
Did you like the movie, Dan?
I didn't not like it, but I didn't love it. I just felt like there was it really gives a bad stigma to gay relationships, if you ask me. And I just feel like this is not going to translate for a lot of people, especially people that are in gay relationships, people that are in gay marriages and things like that. They're not going to be real happy with seeing this. We have some of those in our guild, and one specific on the Orlando side of things. I talked to his name is Jerry, and I talked to him about this. And I said, "What'd you think, Jerry? Did you like it? Did you not like it?" He said, "No, I was not a big fan of it." And I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I respect what they were doing. I really don't understand how he could have won any kind of award, to be honest with you. I thought.
I don't think.
What's his face was better. Like pretty Women Talking. He was the one guy in Women Talking.
Oh my God! How is he? He voices Paddington. Ben Whishaw. Yeah.
Whishaw, the love interest in it, and I liked what he was doing instead of the other guy. To be honest with you, so they're in a relationship together. Ben Whishaw and him are, and I don't know. I don't know what to say. I mean,
I don't think voters are even going to see this movie, to tell you the truth. I don't think a lot of Academy voters are even going to know this movie exists.
Yeah, it came out in theaters over the summer, like July, August.
But anyway, moving on. Best Actress went to Lily Gladstone for Killers of the Flower Moon. There's once again them trying to push her, trying to make sure she's in a good spot to actually get into the nominated.
But at least it got her nominated for the right movie, Malcolm. At least they got her nominated for the right movie instead of the wrong movie. The
other one wasn't nominated.
I know.
As I said with the Gothams, there was the Gothams way of trying to make sure she gets at least noticed.
I understand. I understand.
Dan, what are your thoughts about Lily Gladstone winning for Killers?
Look, I mean, it makes sense that she's going to win at these local critic screws. I just don't think it's going to translate. I'll be honest with you. I think Lily Gladstone's like number 5 on the list of best actress contenders, in my opinion. Maybe 6, all depends. I like what she's doing. She's playing dead. But she plays the same monotone kind of voice and tone in all the movies she was in this year. She's in 3 movies this year, and it's basically the same thing. The only thing that she's doing that's a little different is she's playing dead. She's in a bed. She's dying because she's being poisoned. That's the only thing she's doing any different. But she plays the same character in all 3 movies. She was in Fancy Dance. She was in the one she got nominated, one for the Gothams, and then and Killers of the Flower. It's basically the same monotone kind of character that she plays over and over again. I'd be interested to see what she plays next, to see if it's similar to these other 3 movies, But maybe she could use some acting lessons.
Well, she's going to get bigger roles because she was in a freaking Martin Scorsese movie, and if she's going to show up at Oscars, that's going to help her too. I don't think I agree with you, Dan, that she's number 5. I think she's maybe number 3 in terms of just getting the nomination, because I think the Academy's going to go either for Emma or maybe Carey Mulligan. I agree with you. I think there's going to be more of a critics thing than not, because another thing is that they tend to award showy performances. I don't think this is a showy performance. Also, as much as I like the performance, I don't personally consider this a lead actress performance. I know that the studio has decided to push her as a lead actress. To me, this was more of a supporting performance, to me personally. And I think... But I don't think that you can deny the fact that Gotham's clearly were trying to help her out with that win. And then New York gives her this. I think this is potentially the early signs that critics are going to try to get behind her. Now, to be fair, New York apparently historically aren't big fans of Yorgos stuff, and Emma and Poor Things still got to flex their muscles. And there is a possibility that as the critic awards come down the line over the next month, you'll start to see them back Emma and such. But at this early stage, I think Lily is getting the push that she needs to get in that nomination. But I will say that while I disagree with you as to how low she is, I do agree with you that I'm not ready to currently predict her as our Oscar winner.
Yeah, like I haven't seen Killers, so I don't know much about the performance. But yeah, it's one of those ones like I'm pretty confident she will get nominated. Like, and it's one of those ones like she could be 5. She could be, I still think she's at least getting in there. And it's going to come down to once we start getting like winners for like SAG and all that. When we start to see the title of the winners, sort of which way those are going to go. But moving on, Best Director went to Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer. And this is one of those races where I'm pretty sure is 50-50 considering what got Best Movie. But I'm pretty sure Best Director at this point is between Nolan and Scorsese, unless when the winners for DJ and that start coming out and it starts putting a third person in that race. But Lewis, what's your thoughts about Nolan getting Best Director?
Yeah, I mean, look, I agree with you that I think this is 50-50 with New York, because the New York Film Critics Circle does historically really like Marty. I believe with the results this year, Marty tied I can't name the directors off the top of my head, but he tied certain directors for the directors who have had the most films win Best Film with the New York Film Critics Circle. Three, and what I noticed was, because when they have these conversations and make a decision on winners, when you look at their Twitter feed, you can kind of tell how long the conversation went by between the gap of when they announced the winners. And I noticed there was a lengthy conversation before the director win was announced, but then almost instantly they also announced Best Film. I think what happened was that there was this real debate as to whether they should give it to Nolan or they should give it to Scorsese, and a deal was made that whoever they didn't give it to, they would give their film Best Film to. And I think this shows you the strength of Nolan and why I believe there's a chance that he could become a potential big sweeper, that they clearly loved Killers of the Flower Moon, and they still wanted to give director to Nolan, because there's just this feeling that it's his moment. And that's a very strong narrative for a director to have. We saw it with Jane Campion. We saw it to some extent with Guillermo, because remember, the critics groups weren't necessarily giving Shape of Water Best Picture, but a good many of them were giving him director anyway, because there was a feeling that it's Guillermo del Toro's moment. And I feel that it is Nolan's moment. I think a lot of voters feel it's his moment, and I think you can see critics also feel it's his moment. And we're going to see what happens with Michigan, which we'll talk about later. I think there's a possibility that even in critics groups that don't give Oppenheimer Best Picture, you're going to see him win Best Director. I think this is a potential to begin the beginning of an avalanche for Nolan. I think it just feels like it's his year.
I've been saying that forever, that the Academy Awards are a popularity contest. It's whose turn do they deem it as? And I believe Nolan finally made a very accessible film in a times where we're in multiple wars going on in the world. We're dealing with the military might of the world. I believe it's his turn. He's going to win Best Picture and Best Director at the Academy Awards. But, okay, so they want to give it to Killers to boost some of the momentum for them. That's good, because it was kind of losing a little bit of the steam Killers of the Flower Moon was, if you ask me. If you ask me. So, yeah, this makes complete sense if they've swapped it out like that. It's just a local critics group. But I agree with Lewis. I think you're going to start seeing a steamroller here for Nolan for at least director. In a lot of places, you're going to see Best Picture. I just Universal, boy, they've been doing good lately.
Yeah. It's one of the like what Nolan did with Oppenheimer was just great. And yeah, it's one of those ones like I will always disagree about the whole it's people's turns thing when it comes to the Oscars. Like just because it just seems like a weird way to look at this. But it's just one of those ones like no like just with the way the tides like things are going, like there's one of two ways this could go, and I mean I haven't seen Killers of the Flower Moon, so I can't be upset if it wins, but it's like there's a way, like it could go one of two ways. Like Nolan will, either way, I think Nolan will probably win one because if Oppenheimer gets best film and Scorsese gets director, or vice versa. So I think either way Nolan wins.
But he could win too because adapted screenplay, Malcolm.
Well, I was talking specifically about the best film and direct, but yeah, I mean, it's one of those ones like it's going to go because once again, even adapted screenplay, like once again, if Oppenheimer gets best picture, I can see a world where Killers gets adapted screenplay. So
well, that's
even
Roth.
Then,
what's this something Roth? The guy by
but
the name.
yeah,
Go ahead.
But anyway, moving on, we've pretty much talked about this, so we don't need to go into long thing about this. We've still got Michigan, and we've got about half an hour to do it in. But best film of Killers of the Flower Moon, which once again we already talked about our thoughts about Killers at the same time as director.
I just want to make this quick point about this, Malcolm, is that it's been about a little over a decade now since the winner of this has gone on to win Best Picture at the Oscar. So while this is a nice win for Killers, let's hold our horses in declaring it like, you know, the front runner or anything like that. The New York Film Critics Circle does love Marty, and I think that was a big part of this. But it is nice for Killers to have a win here, because I agree with you, Dan. It did seem to lose a little bit of steam. And it's kind of just reminds a lot of voters to make sure to catch the film and nominate it.
Yeah, I agree.
But moving on to the Michigan Movie Critics nominations, the winners, I believe, gets announced tomorrow.
Monday. Yeah.
Which is the but so we'll be talking about them next week. But the nominations. And the first one that I'm going to bring up is one which is a bit of mishmash of things, because it's the Michigan Movie Critics Group Award for Film Excellence, which is presented to a filmmaker, writer, actor, crew member, etc., whose Michigan ties or a film made or set in Michigan. Nominations is Keegan-Michael Key, who's appeared in like Wonka, Sumo Brothers, and Migration this year. Ashley Park for Joyride. Paul Schrader for directing Master Gardener, Lily Tomlin for Dan's favorite movie, The 80 for Brady, J.K. Simmons for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and Bruce Campbell who was the producer of Evil Dead Rise. But Lewis, what are your thoughts about this Michigan mishmash?
Well, I mean, I can't really speak to it because obviously I'm a critic in Florida, but we have our own thing where we try to award a film that has ties to Central Florida. We also have a little bit of a hall of fame of movies from the past that have ties to Central Florida. So I think this is just them doing their own thing here in terms of trying to give a spotlight to somebody with ties from Michigan. I don't know if they needed to come up with 6 nominees for this particular award, because I don't know how, no disrespect to Michigan, I don't know how easy it's going to be able to get 6 nominees every year. But I my guess is that looking at this, I wouldn't be surprised if they go with J.K. Simmons, given that he's a very well-known veteran, and he's he represents a movie that has the potential to maybe even sneak into Best Picture. But other than that, I can't really say much.
Dan, what are your thoughts about the nominations for the Michigan Film Excellence Award?
Yeah, I reiterate what Lewis says, but I actually am going to go with Ashley Park here for Joyride. I think she was fantastic in Joyride. I think it's a great movie that's hilarious. Not a lot of people are talking about, and she was great in it. And so this would be nice to see her get rewarded for her work in Joyride.
Yeah, and just being someone from New Zealand, I don't have too much connection with this at all. And yeah, it's one of those ones like I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they go for Keegan-Michael Key, because seeing that he's the one that has done the most out of all of these this year. But it's one of those ones like it's tough to kind of do any prediction for the guest, because it's really hard to judge a producer to a director for how you go to. But moving on to the next category, and that's a category for stunts. Nominated is John Wick Chapter 4, The Killer, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, Polite Society, and Silent Night. This is an interesting category just with what's nominated. I think there's no way John Wick Chapter 4 loses here. I think this is it's easily going to win. But that being said, I wouldn't be surprised if Dead Reckoning gives it a run for its money, because even they added a lot of good stunts in it too. But Lewis, what's your thoughts about the nominations for stunts?
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. I did find it interesting that they mentioned Polite Society. That was a cool nomination to have there for stunts. It actually made me kind of rethink maybe about maybe I should keep that movie in mind when I fill out my personal ballot for stunts. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it's probably between John Wick and Mission Impossible with this group, especially as we talk more about these other nominations here. You're going to notice that this group definitely seems to have more of a populist bent than compared to, say, the highbrow bent that we just got from New York Film Critics Circle.
And Dan, what are your thoughts about the category for stunts?
Yeah, I'm right with you, Malcolm. This is John Wick all the way. Some of the stunts that were in that movie are absolutely incredible. And Mission Impossible, the base jumping stunt into the train was ridiculous, and Mission Impossible has always raised the bar with its stunts, so you can't take away that it would win some awards for stunts throughout award season. But I just think there was at least 3 or 4 unbelievable stunt sequences, whether it's car chases or fights on stairs or whatever, in John Wick 4 that are just absolutely incredible. I'll be honest with you, Malcolm, that is my awards darling. If I could put John Wick into as many possible categories as I can, I'm going to try to do it with my own possible guild ballot. You know what I mean? Because I just think it deserves a lot of love, and people are just forgetting about how incredible this movie is.
But moving on to the Breakthrough Award, nominated, we've got Sandra Hüller for Actress for Anatomy of a Fool, Cord Jefferson for American Fiction, Greta Lee for Past Lives, Dominic Sessa for The Holdovers, and Celine Song for Past Lives. Dan, what are your thoughts about the nominations for Breakthrough Award?
Wow, I'll tell you what, this is a hard category to predict. But I think because Sandra Hüller's in both Anatomy of a Fall and Zone of Interest, she's having a moment right now. I love American Fiction, Cord Jefferson. I love Past Lives. Both Celine Song and Greta Lee are in here. I love The Holdovers, so Dominic Sessa. Oh my God! But I'm gonna go with Sandra Hüller because I think she's having a moment in her career, being in 2 potential Best Picture nominees or International Best Picture and an Academy Award Best Picture or whatever. So I'm going to go with her. I could be completely wrong here, but that's what I'm going to go with.
Lewis, what are your thoughts about the nominations for Breakthrough Award?
Yeah, this seems like a pretty solid slate that they have here. I'm going to do a bit of a cop out and say that if I had to make a prediction, I'm actually going to try to predict that it might either be either Greta Lee or Celine Song for Past Lives or Cord Jefferson for American Fiction, because those two movies showed up pretty well here with other nominations, and it's a possibility that picture does come down to these two with this particular group. So maybe that could be a sign of what wins picture, what wins here.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that I think it's tough for me to predict this one because I've not seen any of these movies. But it's one of those I wouldn't be surprised if whoever wins here is someone that the Michigan kind of wants to try and push to get noticed a bit more. I wouldn't be surprised if they push either Greta Lee or Celine Song for Past Lives personally, because just for the fact that Past Lives came out a little bit earlier in the year. I don't know when Anatomy of a Fall came out or it had a wide release. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of try and get Past Lives into as many categories as they can at the Oscars. But moving on to Best Screenplay, once again, they just combined both into here. We've got American Fiction, Anatomy of a Fool, Barbie, The Holdovers, and Past Lives. I'm kind of surprised there was no Oppenheimer and no Killers of the Flower Moon in this. Yeah, this is one of those categories which I think is really interesting to go anywhere. And part of me really wants to see Barbie win here because I do think it's a really good screenplay. But then again, I've not seen any of the other movies. So, Lewis, what are your thoughts about the Best Screenplay award?
Yeah, I'm surprised that neither Oppenheimer or Killers got in here, but maybe not so surprised in hindsight when we get to the picture category, because clearly they didn't love that movie as much as maybe some other groups. I think if Barbie, because I do think there's a world where maybe Barbie can actually pull off winning with this group, it would probably win here for screenplay. But my guess is that either, again, if it comes down between American Fiction and Past Lives, I would guess that whoever wins picture probably wins this as well.
And Dan, what are your thoughts about the Screenplay Award?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, this is another stacked category here. I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I'm gonna go for Past Lives. I just love that screenplay. I just love what they're talking about. It's one of the most real films of the year, in my opinion. So I'm just gonna go with Past Lives here. But not surprising that if Barbie were to pull it off either.
Yeah, and it's one of those ones like, once again, I wouldn't be surprised if they do go for Past Lives, because once again, it could just be the film critics wanted to get Past Lives a bit of love. But they may think like, well, Barbie doesn't need our help. Like, it's good enough and popular enough that it's staying in that conversation. But moving on to Best Ensemble, we've got Air, Barbie, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, and Oppenheimer. This is one of those ones that is tough because you've got about you've got about 4 movies which is really big stacked ensembles with Killers of the Flower Moon, Oppenheimer, Air, and Barbie. And then you've got The Holdovers, which the only one I know by name is Paul Giamatti that's in it, and also Divine Joy Randolph, but it's just one of those. I don't know too much about anyone else in that movie. But Dan, what are your thoughts about the nominations for Best Ensemble?
Yeah, I like this as a category. I like all the, but there's some kids, there's some faculty members in The Holdover, some support.
Dominic Sessa.
But there's Dominic Sessa as well. But those basically it's a 3-hander. The supporting people are kind of there, but they're not like there's a janitor. But I really like this category as a whole as far as all the different. I like them getting Air in here, but this has got to go, you would think, to Oppenheimer. I mean, that ensemble in Oppenheimer is incredible. I mean, incredible. I mean, how he was able to get all those amazing actors into that movie is beside me. I just think the movie's incredible. So yeah, I would go for Oppenheimer here.
Lewis, what is your thoughts about best ensemble?
Yeah, I'm not a bad slate here. I actually think that I would predict, given that Oppenheimer didn't show up in picture with this group, I think that it could be between Barbie and the Holdovers because those two are in picture. So I would say that that's probably the best shot if I had to predict that one of those two are going to win this.
Yeah, and it's one of those ones that honestly I actually wouldn't be surprised if Oppenheimer wins here because they didn't put a bit pictures like because once again it could be a case of like there's just a really for them it was a really stacked year of movies as it is. Like I mean we like the movie enough, but it's like we like these 5 movies that were nominated in picture better. So I do kind of see that maybe Oppenheimer could maybe get ensemble because of that, just so they can give it something. But moving on to best documentary, which only had 3 nominations in this, and it was Beyond Utopia, Sly, and Still, a Michael J. Fox movie. And it's I mean you'd think it's going to be Beyond Utopia just because it's the one that's most likely going to get the love at the Oscars. Hope if they want to go for a favorite, but I wouldn't be surprised if still Michael J. Fox pulls it out. But Lewis, what are your thoughts about best documentary?
I actually think Still might pull this off because if you look at this group's nominees elsewhere, this is a kind of quirky populist group with some of their choices, especially when we look at what the picture nominees are compared to what maybe some other higher brow group critics are going to do. So, and given that it did so well with Critics' Choice, I wouldn't be surprised if Still pulls it off here. But I'm just predicting that based off looking at the taste of this group elsewhere. I think they just seem to be very quirky and populist in comparison. So I don't know if Beyond Utopia is necessarily going to be up their alley.
And Dan, what are your thoughts about the best documentary nominations?
Yeah, I mean look. Population, whatever. I mean, Stallone and Michael J. Fox, 2 incredible icons. But to me, the serious movie should take it, and the movie that has a serious message, and that's Beyond Utopia. And I think that movie needs to get love in these critics groups for it to go on and win the best international or documentary feature. And I feel like this is just hate to keep using domino, but it needs these local groups to start getting the buzz on it and getting the word out there that Beyond Utopia is the documentary of the year for me.
But here's the other thing is if Beyond Utopia is not the favorite going in, it might have a better chance at getting in. Because if
good point.
If it emerges as the favorite, it's like, well, that's not getting nominated.
You're right. Good point, Malcolm.
But moving on to a category which I was stunned when I looked at these nominations, but it's best animated film because no Disney movie. Nominated in best animated film, you've got The Boy and the Heron, Nimona, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Super Mario Brothers, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem. What a really big knife in the chest of Disney it would be if they give the win to Nimona, the movie that Disney passed up on, but with all the same time not nominating Wish and Elementals. That will be the biggest knife into Disney that they could do. But it's one of those ones like I've got a feeling they may go at either Nimona or Boy and the Heron just to give it a little bit of a boost going into it, because they may think that Spider-Man, Super Mario Brothers, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, they are really well-known properties, so they don't need the help, a lot of help going into there. But Nimona and The Boy and the Heron probably do. But Louise, what are your thoughts about best animated film?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is clearly a group that's a little bit quirky and populist. So I'm not. Super Mario getting in there is not too surprising to me, given their taste. I tend to think that Cross the Spider-Verse is probably going to win here. I think it's going to be an easy pick for them, given the taste of the critics group and the nominee slate.
Dan, what are your thoughts about best animated film?
Yeah, I agree with Lewis on Across the Spider-Verse, but I'm just going to pick Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem because I like that movie the best of the bunch.
But moving on to Best Supporting Actor, nominated we've got Sterling K. Brown, Robert De Niro, Robert Downey Jr., Ryan Gosling, and Mark Ruffalo. This is kind of the expected, that it's one of those ones like supporting actor that Mark Ruffalo spot could go either way, like at the Oscars, because you got Charles Melton around there somewhere, even Defoe for Poor Things, like I've heard a lot of good things about as well. But this is kind of what I think the lineup might be at the Oscars, but with that Mark Ruffalo spot up for grabs. But Lewis, what are your thoughts about this supporting actor nominations at the Michigan Critics?
I'll tell you what, I think I would not be completely shocked if Gosling actually pulls this off here, given the taste of this critics group and Barbie being in picture. But I also wouldn't be surprised if Sterling K. Brown wins here as well, because they clearly liked American Fiction a lot too. So I think this could be an interesting win here for the Michigan group, where the winner in supporting actor could end up being a bit of an outlier compared to other critics group here, and they go with something that's a little bit more cool or populist compared to, again, what you'll see from some other highbrow groups.
And Dan, what are your thoughts about supporting actor?
Yeah, I'm going to be I'm always going to be on the Robert Downey Jr. train, but I'll be honest with you, I'd love to see Sterling K. Brown win here, because I think he was phenomenal. He's doing something completely different than I've ever seen him do before, and I think he's really good in that movie, and that movie needs love.
But moving on to supporting actress, we've got America Ferrera for Barbie, Divine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers, Rachel McAdams for Hey There God, It's Me Margaret, Julianne Moore for May December, and Rosamund Pike for Saltburn. This is one that I think, once again, there's a good chance I'll probably go Divine Joy Randolph here, because they may think she needs the push. But that being said, I wouldn't be upset if Rachel McAdams gets to win either, because I haven't seen Hey There God, It's Me Margaret. What I'm heard, she's good in the movie, and that could help maybe give Rachel McAdams a little bit of a push to potentially get a nomination as well. But Dan, what are your thoughts about this lineup for Best Supporting Actress?
Yeah, I mean, I would predict Divine Joy Randolph here, but if I had my druthers, I'd love to see. And once again, another minority actress, America Ferrera, for Barbie, and Dumb Money. She's really good in Dumb Money, and she's very good in Barbie. So once again, this would be Mexican, it wouldn't be black, but Mexican-American. So that would be still 5 nominees in Best Supporting Actress if that trend, which I think might happen, could happen. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on that.
Lewis, what's your take? I don't think I've gone too far. Supporting actress. What do you take in supporting actress?
Yeah. I mean, America Ferrera showing up here just shows you just how much they loved Barbie, and which is why I think there's a very real possibility she could pull this off. That being said, Holdovers also got into picture, so if I had to guess, I think this is going to be one of those critics groups that pushes Randolph, especially given that Brooks isn't a competitor that is clearly going to have to be a little bit of a late surger because of how late it came out and some people having to catch up to it late.
I mean, it's one of those ones, like, for some of these, like, it could just be that they didn't get the screeners for, like, things like Color Purple and Wonka out in time.
Yeah. I think that's the problem, because we see that happen with 1 or 2 competitors every year, and then you almost start to notice as the critics circles come in that when people are starting to catch up with those movies.
But moving on to Best Actor, nominated we've got Bradley Cooper for Maestro, Zac Efron for The Iron Claw, Paul Giamatti for The Holdovers, Cillian Murphy for Oppenheimer, and Jeffrey Wright for American Fiction. I would love to see if Zac Efron can pull this off and get nominated at the Oscars for The Iron Claw. Because once it'll be a really good sort of like former Disney star eventually getting an Oscar nomination. I think that's a really good story to sort of go down the end. But
My
yeah, I mean
Go ahead, Malcolm.
The other four I think is relatively safe for that. I think this is probably you're going to see Best Actor anyway. But Lewis, what are your thoughts about the Best Actor lineup?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very interesting lineup because it looks like it has the potential to be a lineup that I can see happening at Oscar. That obviously at the moment Zac Efron is a bit of a long shot. I would love if this is a big push for Efron, though, because having seen the movie, I really loved his performance in it. I, in my opinion, he was the MVP of the film, and I really dig the fact that they went ahead and nominated him here, even though the movie didn't necessarily show up elsewhere. With this group at least. But I think if anything, I almost want to say that that Jeffrey Wright might actually pull this off, given where that American Fiction got into picture. But at the same time, it would be interesting, given Maestro didn't get into picture with this group, it would be interesting to see if Cooper wins here to kind of test out if he's going to do well with that populist crowd that the industry is going to be with, or if Cillian Murphy pulls off the win here, given also Oppenheimer also didn't get into picture with this group. So this is going to be an interesting test for those guys with this group.
Dan, what are you going to say?
Yeah, my 2 cents is this is Bradley Cooper's to lose here. But my thing is Zac Efron to me was a surprise here because I didn't see any Coleman Domingo, and I think Coleman Domingo's a much better shot of getting in the 5 at the Academy Awards, with the other 4 being the 4 that I think you can pretty much predict. So that was the interesting thing about Zac Efron, and going off to what Lewis said about a late surger. Maybe they ended up getting the screening of Iron Claw, and so they were able to see that, and they really liked Zac Efron, so he got into Best Actor. But that doesn't bode well for Coleman Domingo. Hopefully, he'll get some buzz down the line here.
I mean, I think for him to have any shot, I think he needs to start getting the buzz for Bustner. But once again, I think it's a case of Netflix has got so many movies to juggle. There's going to be some people missing out.
I got you.
Unfortunately, the way it's looking like now, it's going to be Coleman Domingo that's not going to get in there. Because especially if it's going to be Maestro, it's going to get a lot of this push. Then Rustin could be left on the back burner so much. But moving on to Best Actress, we've got Lily Gladstone for Killers of the Flower Moon, Sandra Hüller for Anatomy of a Fool, Greta Lee for Past Lives, Carey Mulligan for Maestro, and Emma Stone for Four Things. Dan, what are your thoughts about the Best Actress lineup?
Wow, this is a great. Actually, I love this category. To be honest with you, I think this is a fantastic category here. But I mean, I would hope that the front runner Emma Stone would start winning some of these awards and some of these. But and we've seen it in New York now with 2 different groups. Gladstone has pulled it off, so I wouldn't be surprised if Lily Gladstone ended up winning here. I'm glad to see Sandra Hüller in here, though. That's good for her. But if Emma Stone's going to pull off the Oscar for her second Oscar and keep winning, she's got to win here. She's got to start winning in these regional groups.
I mean, I will disagree with you on that. I think it and it's one of those ones like Emma Stone may be the front runner. But I think it's one of those ones like I don't think it's going to hurt your chances to potentially win. I think as I've said a few times today, I think these critic groups exist to try and help boost other people so much so they at least get nominated. And so I think that's what they're doing with Lily Gladstone. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan maybe try to push Greta Lee for Past Lives for that. But and it's one of those ones that I think is there, but like I don't think if Emma Stone doesn't win some of these credits, I don't think it hurts her at all either. Because she is a really well-known actress, so it's like people are going to like check out her in her movies no matter what. Like, but Lewis, what are your thoughts about the best actress nominations?
Well, adding to that, it might, again, we need to see how these things play out because we're in such an insanely early part of it. But it could be that this is also a category where critics do one thing, the industry does another. Maybe critics go for Lily Gladstone, and then the industry goes for Emma Stone. I think this is a really good shot for Emma Stone to get the win here, though, because again, Killers did not get into picture with this group. Poor Things did. So I think this is probably a really good shot for her to get her first big critics win here with this group. So if anything, I would probably predict her to win here.
Moving on, got Best Director, got Greta Gerwig nominated for Barbie, Paul Jefferson for American Fiction, Yorgos Lanthimos for Poor Things, Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer, and Martin Scorsese for Killers of the Flower Moon. It's kind of expected. It's one of those ones like, surprisingly they didn't go for Celine Song, but I think it's a case of maybe because they put her in breakthroughs, like that they think that's their way of giving you some push. But I think it's one of those ones. I think some of these will get into Best Director at the Oscars. I think the Foster has a guess at that which one is the one that could rotate out for someone else is probably the Paul Jefferson one. Not that I'm saying American Fiction is bad. I'm not saying that at all. It's just there's about 6 or 7 directors vying for that spot, and I think one of them is Celine Song. And I think that
Alexander
you
Payne.
could go anywhere. But
Alexander Payne.
yeah, but Lewis, what are your thoughts about the Best Director lineup?
Yeah, don't be surprised if Greta Gerwig wins this if they decide to actually award, if this group decides to actually award Barbie. That being said, this is going to be an interesting test in terms of how dominant Nolan could end up being as a sweeper or not, because we already saw New York not give Oppenheimer picture, but they still wanted to give Nolan director. If Nolan can win here, where Oppenheimer wasn't even nominated for picture with this group, I mean, at that point, you might be ready to just call the race over. Like, I mean, if he's so dominating to the point that he's even winning where they won't even nominate Oppenheimer for picture. So this is going to be a very interesting test here. If tomorrow, when they announce their winners, they announce Nolan as their director winner, at that point, it might be like, at that point, it'll be a question of just where can Nolan actually lose, if anywhere.
Yeah, I agree.
And Dan, what are your thoughts about the director lineup?
Yeah, no, I love this lineup. I just think you got to take out. You probably got to take out one of these. In my opinion, someone's not going to be in here because I think Alexander Payne's going to be in the Oscar 5. I mean, so I don't know who's in here that's shouldn't be in here, but I love this lineup. Don't get me wrong, I love this lineup of director. But I think this is Nolan's to lose here. But one of these 5 aren't going to be in there. Probably Scorsese, if you ask me. And Alexander Payne's going to be in there instead of Scorsese. Maybe that's a hot take coming from a Scorsese fan, but I believe that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those ones like where Michigan's going to go. It's hard to say because, and we'll get to Best Picture in a minute. But it's interesting because only 2 movies there's only 3 movies that are nominated in Best Director that are also in picture, and that's Barbie, American Fiction, and Poor Things. Both Oppenheimer and Killers are not there, so So it's really so it could be the case of they love the direction of Oppenheimer. They just thought the 5 minutes that they nominated in picture is there. I don't know. It's really tough to say. But moving on to Best Picture, nominated in Best Picture, we've got American Fiction, Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie, The Holdovers, Past Lives, and Poor Things. And it's worth noting. So they must have had a tie somewhere, so which is why they made it 6 nominations. And it's surprised that they had 6 nominations and still Oppenheimer and Killers just couldn't get in there. But I don't have a problem with this lineup. I mean, I've only seen one of these 6, and which is it's going to be interesting to see because it could be a case of whatever wins picture you're going to get a split director potentially. But Dan, what are your thoughts about the nominations for picture?
Yeah, this is a great lineup for picture without Killers and Oppenheimer in there. I understand these regional groups are going to do some wacky things sometimes, but I think this is a holdovers type of group. I think could be the group that could champion the holdovers, and that's what I'm going to go for here.
And Lewis, what is your take on the pictures lineup?
Yeah, Mo, this is technically the first year for this group, but from what I understand, there used to be a Detroit Film Critics. I think it's the Detroit Film Society of Critics or something like that, which I'm not sure exists anymore. So I think this might have some former members there. And so I decided to go and check the Detroit's history in past with awards, and I noticed that they were also pretty quirky and they were also pretty populous and kind of different from a lot of other critics groups. So maybe there's just like a Michigan critics thing where they just have a very particular kind of taste. Because I just think it's kind of weird that neither Oppenheimer or Killers could get into picture. But then if you were to look at how Detroit's film critics did in the past, it kind of makes more sense, because there's just something about these Michigan critics that they're willing to just do their own thing and be a little bit quirky. So looking at what they've nominated at these 6, I agree with Dan. There's a possibility Holdovers can win. I think Poor Things can win here. Do not be surprised if they actually go with Barbie, because the last year that I'm aware of that Detroit did their awards, they actually gave picture to Cyrano, which no other critics group was giving Best Picture to Cyrano. So there's a possibility that they just do something really fun and quirky and go with Barbie here for picture. So I would say keep an eye out for potentially this being the group that says, yeah, we're going to go there and we're going to give Barbie picture.
But with that does bring us to the end of Gone with the Wind for another week. Next week we'll be talking about the winners of this, plus there's going to be some other critics groups and stuff dropping around that time.
And be our top 10.
Dan, where can people find you online?
You can find me under my name, Dan Skipbound, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, not Twitter, X, Threads, Sky, also Letterbox, or you could go to my website right here, FromTheFourthRow.com, where I'm a film critic, also DisappointmentMedia.com. I've been really busy lately, so there's going to be a lot of reviews going up, so just keep an eye out.
Lewis, we can find you online.
Yeah, MendesMovieReport.com takes you to my Substack, 100% free. At least I try to get at least one weekly written movie review, Oscar projections. I'm trying to eventually do some classic movie lists again. Also, if you want to find me on social media, Facebook, Twitter/X, Threads, Instagram, Letterboxd, Mendes Movie RPT. You can find me there.
And you can find me in about a minute or so time with my other show, Rankum. And yeah, I pop up on a lot of things all over the place, and yeah, but I'm just going to go out on this, and
It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's